My name is Choudary. I'm the CEO and co-founder of YetiZen, which is the world's largest games community hub for game developers and the only games accelerator that is in existence. So I started my first, or actually thought of my first business at the age of 14, but it wasn't until 23 when I got started on my entrepreneurial journey. And TiE Youth is an attempt by myself and several others in our team to inspire college, high school, and younger students to execute on their entrepreneurial visions by learning by some of the strongest and youngest entrepreneurs of today. So with that said, our first panel is Lessons Learned as a Young CEO, and joining me on stage are going to be Aron Beierschmitt, who is the CEO of Foundation Games, Jordan Casey, our youngest speaker this year at TiEcon, who is the founder of Casey Games, and Tanay Tandon, who is the founder of Clipped. One quick housekeeping item: if you'd like to ask us any questions, please tweet to the TiE Youth hashtag, and that's how we're going to be taking questions from the audience. We're probably going to have one other speaker who will be running in because he's coming in the nick of time. But welcome, guys. Welcome on stage. How's it going today? Good. Good. So how old were you guys when you started your first startup?
So I was 15. So last year I started Clipped as a freshman in high school. And yeah, I've been working on it for about a year since then. So yeah.
Actually, you were working on it at last year's TiE Youth, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was an attendee last year, and I watched everyone talk, and it was a great experience. So I was working on it during that time, and this very conference served as a huge motivation and inspiration for going on to found Clipped and really execute the rest of the product. So that's kind of this conference is the reason why I'm here. So.
And Jordan, how old were you?
I started my company last year when I was 12, in January. I started Casey Games.
Let's give him a hand, guys. 12 years old. Oh. For those of you who are older, this should be a sign. You guys need to start your companies if you haven't already.
I started Casey Games. It's an independent mobile video game company. I sort of started it just to sort of make it tie in with my game development and my previous developments.
Tie in with your, what was that?
To sort of tie in with my previous game development and sort of developments.
Now, both of you started programming way younger than when you started your companies, right?
Yeah.
What was that? How old were you when you first started coding?
So I got into Java programming and just in general experimenting with HTML pages, all that kind of stuff when I was in early middle school, so 6th, 7th grade. And I just loved tinkering around with, little bits of programs and experimenting and seeing what I could do with them. And then, yeah.
Awesome.
I started programming when I was 9, about 4 years ago. I used to play a game. I used to play a game called Club Penguin, and I saw that some of the users of the game were making websites and blogs about the game. So I thought that could be like a fun hobby and a fun thing to do. So I went to the shop and bought a book on programming.
Nice.
And then a year after that, I was thinking of other projects I could get into, and I thought of games.
Right. Now, I actually know the founder of Club Penguin, and he sold to Disney in '99, right? Is that your goal?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Awesome. So, real quickly, how do you think people perceive you in doing business, being as young as you are?
Well, I think that, especially in this area, age isn't as much of a, it doesn't create as much of a barrier as it might in other industries or other places. So, like, I can literally send an email to anyone in...
Guys, let's welcome Aron. He made it. He braved the traffic all the way from San Francisco.
Here, kick it up.
Yeah, so I was saying I can pretty much get in touch with anyone, and they're really open about talking to me, giving me advice, and that's what I love the most about this Silicon Valley. Like, people are so welcome to having the younger generation step it up and kind of take over, and that's why age is not much of a factor. So yeah.
Nice.
In Ireland,
How is it in Ireland? Lots of 13-year-olds doing businesses?
in Ireland, it can sort of be varied. Like some people would be very supportive and would give me a lot of advice, but then a lot of other people may not really take me seriously. They may think I'm just doing it for fun and I'm not a real businessman. So it can be varied.
So how have you been dealing with that?
Yeah, I've just been sort of getting along with it, and a lot of the people are really supportive, and then there's just a few who aren't.
So do you ignore
Yeah.
the ones who don't? Okay.
Yeah.
And Aron, you were
Yes.
what, 19 when you got started? 17?
19.
19. Okay. And how do you think you were perceived as a young CEO? Actually, you're pretty young now. I've seen you in investor meetings, and there's definitely that perception thing going, right? How do you deal with that, being perceived as very young, and how does that affect you in business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started this company in East Tennessee, and entrepreneurship is not very big there. So you can kind of imagine the reaction most people get when you tell them you've started a company, especially a gaming company. So no, you kind of have to fight against that, but eventually, you can break through, and I came out here, so.
Nice. Now, you had a very interesting story for how you got your first fundraising. It was essentially cold emailing people on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I took advantage of the early LinkedIn ability to send a lot of emails without getting, paying for them. And so I just did a random search for investor interested in social media, gaming, any of those kind of tag words, and sent out, about 50, 60 emails to a bunch of guys. I got 3 responses. I got one guy who said, "Don't ever email me again." Another guy who said, "Wow, well, you've got a bunch of buzzwords, but I have no idea what in the hell you're trying to build." And then the third guy, Steve Vachani, actually said, "Hey," realized I was a very, very young kid, told me no, but kept in touch. And eventually, when I was 19, he put the first seed round into the foundation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's actually the person who introduced us, and
Yes.
you got into Yetizen, so.
Yep.
Yeah. So, knowing what you guys know now about running businesses and just the whole process and the journey, if you could go back to when you first started the company, what is it that you would actually tell the younger you?
Well, going back to 1 year, maybe even a year and a half, I'd say that it's a lot easier than people make it seem. And honestly, it's not about having some sort of massive investment coming in from the beginning itself, or having some tons of developers. It's all about just doing something that you like, and then eventually translating it into something that people can actually use. So sometimes I feel like people wait a long time before they go ahead and say, "Oh yeah, I've started a company now." But that wait is really unnecessary. They can kind of just go ahead and just throw a beta out. It might not even work, but at least people can see it and feel it, and I think that's what it's about.
I would say to myself, never give up. You're going to run into a lot of big problems, but if you keep going and you keep fighting, then you'll probably get somewhere good in the end.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to get an applause, but I'd probably say thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'd have to tell myself, it's going to be hard, right? I think I jumped into it thinking, a year from now I'm going to sell and have $10 million in the bank, and 3 years in I'm doing well, but not $10 million in the bank yet. So it's definitely a long journey, and I would go back and tell myself, hey, stick it through, and eventually good things happen.
So actually on that note, I'm going to ask each of you, what drives you? Is it when you thought, hey, I'm going to maybe continue school and work on my company in the evenings, not continue school, which I know some of you have had that situation, and then going back or what have you. That's a really, really big decision, right? And there's a lot of people in your lives, your parents, your friends, whatnot, who you also had to talk to. But for you at a personal level, right, what was it that you said, hey, this is why I'm going to be doing this? What is it that you wanted to create? Was it that vision of $10 million liquid in the bank, or was it something else? What was it for you?
Well, I mean, there's always that image where growing up, like in the Valley, you always see people like, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and they're just so hyped up that I think every kid has an aspiration at some point in their life to be like them. But along with that, there's also, the feeling that just the concept that you can build something that other people can actually use, and you can see people using it. Like whenever I see someone use my app, it's a really humbling experience. Like it's like, wow, this person has this thing that I built. And I think that's really what I developed for. So.
Now, was it maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about what your company actually does. Was this a personal frustration that led you to actually be creating Clipped?
Yeah, so I worked on Clipped, and Clipped is a summarization algorithm that can take long news articles, documents, and analyze them grammatically to generate a bullet point summary. So really, where I got started on this idea was that I do speech and debate in high school, and like a lot of you, I'm sure in the audience, like doing speech and debate is really tedious in the sense that you have to look through so many evidence files and look through so many cases. And I wanted to build something that could just scan through it and just surface the most important points for me. And then from there, I could get a general idea of what it's talking about. So that's kind of the experience that caused me to build it.
And Jordan, what drives you every day?
So what drives me is when I finish a product that I can see people are entertained. So I like to see when people are like entertained with my game and they're enjoying it. And I just like to see people happy with something that I've done myself.
And a lot of your players come back, right? I think we had a conversation backstage, and you were saying that you had a pretty high retention rate.
Yeah.
Do you care to share with the audience what it is for your games?
Yeah, so I released a game in February last year, and in the first 2 days, 70% of people came back. And it's sort of been lowering down now, but still 20% every
Now, just for the audience, typically for games, it's about 20, 30% is considered good. So that's really awesome. What drives you, Aron?
So for me, it's all about world building. I was an engineer before I decided I liked to play video games more than I liked going to engineering class. And yeah, it's about being able to create an experience and then let other people experience that. And of course, you can do that in film, but in gaming, you actually get to let your audience mess around, play around in the world that you created. It's a very complicated problem, but I think it's something that's very interesting to try and solve.
So top pieces of advice for folks in the audience that are right now thinking about that business idea that they want to make into a big business. What would that be?
So I guess like my main piece of advice would be like either like start learning how to do something that's going to be directly applicable. So for example, for me, it was coding, but that's not like just programming in general, picking up tons of languages. Now, that's not necessarily true for all ideas, but in my opinion, especially in the startup field, learning how to code is almost a must. So that's like the #1 thing that I would do first. I'm a programmer, so it's kind of a biased opinion. But then there's probably the second thing is just kind of get to know a lot of people, even if they're not doing something that's directly related to what you're doing. Just network in general, and they can help you definitely later on.
Yeah, I would say, again, never give up. Like you're probably going to run into a lot of problems and a lot of things you can't fix. But if you keep going and you keep like driving yourself, you'll get somewhere good in the end.
Okay. Aron?
Wow. Well, I have to agree with both. Learn to program, never give up. I guess on top of that, I think one of the biggest things is to, everybody has this path and this plan, and you hope it's going to happen in that way, and it never does. And that's kind of part of it. I think you have to anticipate that you're going to fail and fall and pivot and push and turn and transition. And you just have to roll with that and know that it's part of the experience and part of the fun of starting and growing and building something.
Okay. So we have about 15 minutes left. So I'm thinking we should get into the deeper nitty-gritty of this. What is the worst decision you made in your startup ever that at the time, right after you saw the results of it, you're like, gosh, I wish I'd known better?
So I think the worst decision that I probably made was waiting so long to publicly launch. I waited like literally most of the algorithm, most of the app was already ready in February, or I mean not February, but probably early summer at least of last year. And I waited until early this year, January, to finally launch. And I don't really realize why I did that. Maybe I was just nitpicky, perfecting. But in the end, that was lost time. And in the end, you can't really afford to lose so much time. So I wouldn't hold off the launch for so long.
For me, it was kind of like the opposite. I launched too early. In November, I launched a game which, it was too early. I had a lot of sort of bugs in it, and there was a lot of things that I wanted to add that I couldn't, and so it took a while to sort of, like, once I launched, I wasn't able to get a bigger hype when I launched with a better game and a better update, so that's probably the worst decision I've made.
Now, I think some of it might also be because, you're doing a consumer web play, you're doing a gaming play, and what that first minimum viable slice is in both those businesses is very, very different, right? And in games, it's kind of a moving target, right?
Yeah.
How do you realize what is the right level for the game to launch with? How do you keep abreast of what's happening in the space and what your game should look like when you launch it?
I want them to be good quality, and I want them to be sort of the same as all the other games on the App Store. I don't want them to be like sort of they don't have enough content. So like with the other game I launched, people finished it too slowly, like too quickly, and like it was done within like 15 minutes.
But how big is your team, Jordan?
I have 2 people.
You have 2 people, and the folks you're competing against are some of the biggest companies in games right now, right?
Yeah.
Going after the same categories. How do you make sure that in the market you then end up having better results than them?
So I sort of just target the market that I sort of know myself, like the kids market. So I just want to make it just for kids. I don't really want to like make a kids game for adults, sort of.
So you're hoping that they know less than you about the kids market?
Yeah.
Okay. I was sitting through the Thai women's panel, and someone was saying, oh, more women is great because half of our consumers for electronic devices is women. And so, hey, more kids are great because they're building games for kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And Aaron?
So the worst decision I've made?
Yes.
Sana, you know me. I've made a lot of really bad decisions.
Yes, I was going to talk about those, but you made some really good ones too, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think starting out...
Such as working with me.
Oh, yes, of course. So I think starting out, I had the opportunity to work with a co-founder, and I actually chose not to. And I think that having a co-founder can help in a lot of ways. It can also hurt in some, but having someone else that's up there experiencing the same things with you, right, during the journey, I think is important. And so I've always kind of regretted not, taking on a co-founder early on and remaining a single founder.
Mm-hmm. Would you do that now? Would you go back and actually go for a founder?
I think I would. I think I would go and go for a co-founder. I mean, losing a little bit of equity, I think, is the least of the worries. I think having somebody else to truly talk to that understands exactly what you're going through, dealing with the investors, dealing with shareholders, dealing with everyone, right, is important.
Now, Tanay and Jordan, are you guys single co-founders?
So I'm single, just by myself, and I have to agree with that because it really helps having another person, but at the same time, working by myself was, but it was good in the sense that I had full control over whatever I said, but overall, I'm by myself right now, yeah.
Yeah. So your businesses, you've been at it for about a year since launch, right? So would you try and look for a co-founder now? Is that something on top of your things to do for the business?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not actively looking, but if I'm definitely more open in the sense that if someone does express interest and I think would work well with me, then I definitely, a co-founder would be important to have.
So you are all 3 of you at the world's largest conference for entrepreneurs, right? There's a lot of big companies here. There's a lot of startup entrepreneurs. What are some things for your business that you would like help with from the crowd?
Oh, me? Oh.
Yeah, all of you guys, all 3 of you. Whoever wants to go first.
Want to go first?
Do you want to go?
Oh, man, okay, so I'm going to go first.
I don't want anything. My business is perfect.
So what do I want from people at this conference?
Or just in general,
my
what would you
business?
like for your business that maybe there's someone in the crowd who might be able to help you with?
Well, we always need play testers.
These games are great too.
Thank you, Sana. Thank you. The ability to get feedback pre-launch, I think, is absolutely critical. And it's conferences like this that people don't typically get too weirded out if you run up and check this out. Most people are kind of used to that and expect that. So getting some feedback on the upcoming games and every bit helps.
I guess in my sense, just feedback as well, but at the same time, like even having people to work with, because especially just there's so much talent out here, and taking advantage of that in the sense of either having interns or just hiring directly, or having someone to just be a part of Clipped in the sense that they might be able to help out with things on the business side while I'm worrying about the programming side. That's all really important. So yeah.
So if any of you in the audience are actually young and want an internship at growing startups, talk to any of these guys, right? Jordan?
Yeah, I'd like to sort of get someone to work with me too. So like I'm based in Ireland and my other staff member is based in England, so it'd be cool to have one in America too, so we all do it online. So yeah, definitely I'm in need of like another staff member to help me out with sort of the design and the art. So I'd like to get someone to work with me.
Okay. Now, I had a radio interview about Thai youth about a week ago before this, and on the radio interview, there were some parents on the call saying, "Hey, my kids play games too much," and this is for Aron and Jordan. "They don't study, they don't do anything valuable. What can you do for me?" Right? And I have an answer to that, but I'd love to hear from you guys. What when you're young and when you meet various older folks within the audience who think games are not the way to go and not something that their kids should be playing, what do you think as game developers that you'd like to share with them?
I think games are great because a lot of the games usually have challenges, and they sort of set you up in real life. If you have a challenge and if this doesn't work, or if I do this, then does this, it could set you off in like the real world. And then there's a lot of other games that are educational. So I'm sort of working on a few educational games too, which I think would be better for kids. I think they would prefer the kids would prefer to play the games other than studying, and because they like to play the games, they'll remember things more.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you know, my mother didn't let me play games as a kid. And so I had to go
and see what happened.
I had to go and start a gaming company. No, I think particularly with mobile games, there's all these instances in a person's kind of like day-to-day, where you have 5-10 minutes to yourself, right? And I view games as a way to increase a little bit of, add to the happiness, right? And give you a little boost during those kind of down times, whether it's waiting in line or, private bathroom moments or whatever. I mean, we all do it. Yeah, it's all about increasing the overall happiness and utility.
Okay. Advice for the audience, and let's, can be a couple of pieces. It could be 1, 2, whatever you like. But, let's start with you, Tanay, since you were actually on those seats last year.
So I guess, like I said earlier too, it's like the distance between those seats and this seat is not that much at all. The truth is that like it's just a matter of spending some time and finding a problem, and then working for a couple months to create that solution, and then just getting it out there so people can use. And as long as you have tons of users, tons of feedback, the community is just so amazing that things are just going to naturally, spontaneously happen. So it's all about getting something out there.
And how do you decide which problems are worth being solved?
So it's just going to sound a little cheesy because a lot of startup founders say it, but it really has to be something that, in my opinion, you've suffered from yourself and you feel like it needs to be changed. And for me, it was just something small, like debate in high school. But there's so many other problems that people face on a day-to-day basis that can be solved through startups.
Problem, impact on people. Does it matter how many people that the problem impacts, or it could be anything that's just most frustrating to you? How do you think about that?
So obviously, like a lot of times it's like a problem that impacts a ton of people. You think that you're going to get a ton of users from that, but that's not always the case. But even at the same time, I feel like if there's a problem that you feel strongly about versus a problem that 100 people feel strongly about, the problem that you feel strongly about is always the one to go with, because that's the problem that you're going to best be able to connect with and best be able to create something for. And I think that's what it all comes down to in the end.
Again, I'd say never give up, but also I'd say do something that you want to do and do something that you love, because it's not going to be fun when you're like a young person and you're doing something that you don't want to do. like school.
Yeah, why do that? A lot of adults do that anyways, right?
Yeah, so like, yeah, definitely do something that you're passionate about and you want to do, because if you do something that you're passionate about, you'll do good in it, and if you do something that you're not really passionate about, you probably won't.
So I agree with these guys. Obviously, passion is incredibly critical. I think you have to have a good measure of fun. You really have to enjoy what you're doing, because the moment it turns bad or the road gets a little bit hard, you're going to find that if you're not enjoying it, you very quickly fail. You very quickly give up. But you know, I pick something that I enjoy and love and get to have a lot of fun doing. So even in the bad times, you know, I push through.
Awesome. So now I'm actually going to go to my Twitter account there and see what questions you guys have in the audience. So actually I don't see any main questions going on right now. So Thai Youth is hashtag Thai Youth. If you have any questions for any of the panelists here, please tweet those in. So let's see, what else should we cover? What else should these people know? There's got to be so much. That's 1 to 3 years of you guys' experience. Lots of stuff you learn along the way.
So we've covered the worst mistakes. Mm-hmm. Best decisions. Have we covered best decisions?
There you go, best
All right,
decisions.
so the best decision that I have made, let's see. There's only a few. I guess what I'd have to say, it was relocating to the Valley, the Bay Area, coming from East Tennessee. Obviously not a very, thank you. Obviously coming from East Tennessee, there's not a lot of, there's not a culture around startups and around entrepreneurship out there, at least as extreme as it is here. And when I moved out here last fall, it kind of smacks you in the face. You're like riding the subway and people are like building Facebook killers, and you're like, wow, this is crazy. People really do this. So I think surrounding yourself, by surrounding myself in this culture has certainly helped a lot. So.
Would you say it's different than other parts in the U.S., not just in the sheer density of startups, but also in other things? Like, are people more helpful when you're doing a startup? Is there a better perception? Like, what is it? Because there's a lot of folks in the audience who are from other countries and other parts of the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was in Austin, Texas for a bit. I really love that town, mm-hmm. But even it compared to here is very different. There's just a drive and an energy around people out here, and sometimes it can get a little intense. You need to go take a vacation for a bit, but no, it's. I think just everyone kind of has that collective passion out here that isn't present elsewhere.
So I just got a very interesting question from the audience. In 10 years, where do you see yourselves?
I guess in 10 years.
How old will you be in 10 years, though?
I'll be 26. So it's I don't know. There's no way to say specifically what I'll be doing in 10 years. I really think that I'll definitely be doing something in a startup field for sure in 10 years, and that's a field that I want to stay in. So I'll do everything I can to stay in that field. And, yeah.
Okay. Jeremy?
In 10 years,
you're going to be
23.
23.
I'd like to still be working in games, and I'm really happy now that I've started young. So in 10 years, again, I'll be 23, and I'll already have 10 years experience of the gaming industry and what it's like. So, yeah.
10 years, Aaron?
I will be at 32, so I'm the oldest.
Oh, so
here
old.
by far. Oh man, I've never felt so old in my life. Yeah, this is actually kind of weird. No, I hope that I'm still building, and whether I've had successful exits or not, it's just to stay in this industry that I love so much. Yeah.
So I want to do 2 questions, and we have 2 minutes, so it's about a minute each, right? So for the 2 game companies, what makes your games unique?
I think what makes my games unique is I make kid games, and I'm a kid, so I think I know what kids sort of like to play, and yeah, so I try to make them as what I would like to play, because I'm a kid.
Awesome. Aaron?
So we at Foundation Games focus on kind of immersive graphics and visual experiences that try and kind of suck you into the tablet platforms. So yeah, our focus is tablet first and on building
cute iconic characters.
Cute iconic,
Lumi and
awesome characters.
Awesome.
Yeah, that
Okay.
really drive you in. Yeah.
All right, last question. How did your family support your ventures? Did they or did they not?
So I think that's a great question, because it's no secret I'm Indian, and Indian parents are interesting, in the sense that
I find it funny that all the parents are clapping on this end.
So yeah, my parents were very, very supportive, and I think it's due in part to the fact that I just had a sense of trust between them. So a lot of times, like, I'd be spending too much time programming, and they'd be like, "Whoa, what's up with your homework?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get to that." They were supportive in the sense that they trusted me that, okay, I'm eventually going to go finish my work. And I think that also brings up the topic of education also in the sense, but I won't go into that too much, but yeah.
No, that's good. Aaron? Just skip around. Aaron.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so my dad is a PhD engineer. He's the deputy lab director of Oak Ridge National Lab. And you can imagine what he thought when his son comes home and says, "Hey, Dad, I don't want to be a mechanical engineer. I want to build games." But you have kind of the tough love, and we made it through that, and they've always been very supportive.
And Jordan, your mom's here actually, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice, wherever you are, if you could stand up so everyone knows. All right, Jordan.
At the start, they didn't really understand what I was doing. They thought I was on the computer too much, and they thought I was just playing games. So they're like, "Oh, go outside." But when I sort of started the company and released my first major game, they sort of realized what I was actually doing, and they became really, really supportive. They have to take a lot of time off work and take a lot of time off activities because I have to go to these conferences or events or meetings, and they're really, really supportive of me.
Awesome. All right, well, great parents. Guys, let's give our panelists a hand. Thank you very much. Come on in. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yes. Please. Let's give them a hand again, guys.